Rastafari, Baba Jana, His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie, the ever-living God and everlasting King. I've written some volumes, coined the article, the title from Ethiopian World Federation, Section 7. And so it says non-partisan, non-political. But my articles, my volume, partisan, political, and other issues. This is volume 2. It is in the Facebook. Now the first essay on this volume. Volume 2. Haile Selassie the first is free trade. Free trade is Haile Selassie. Until the entire continent become the home of the free, and until every man and every people can in peace and labor for the advancement and welfare of family and homeland. ... Quotation from His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. Jesus Christ was free trade. Free trade was Jesus Christ. He thinks was his quotation from Queen Elizabeth I. Such a quotation did exist, and in fact, it was a very famous English royalty who made such a historical statement in a book. Some scholars also tied up the slave ship Jesus of Lubeck to such economic activities. However, the role played by the slave master in the transfer of Jesus Christ's doctrine has been well documented, and the use of it to transfer power and wealth in their coffers, treasuries, has been well known. Destruction of Christian crusades of human lives has also been well documented. This has helped to make dated the spread and sphere of Christianity, instrument of attestation. United Nations and its affiliate bodies such as UNESCO, United Nations Economic, Scientific, Cultural Organization, WHO, World Health Organization, UNICEF, United Nations Children Fund, was founded by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. The Organization of African Unity, OAU, the UN Charter of Human Rights, was written by the hand of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. Also the EWF, Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie speaks of, and that unity is strength in itself. Note that these above-mentioned instruments of attestation thus fulfill Psalm 64 verse 4 and govern the nations on earth. Quotation. Selah, Psalm 64 4. Remember St. Paul at Ephesus, somewhere down in Greece, Turkey, where he was put out by the trade association, especially of metal works, because his trade in the doctrine of Jesus Christ was an impairment and hindrance to their trade and the nature of their trade. British Broadcasting Corporation documentary is the reference. Compared to the introduction of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, who was given the longest, strongest, holiest, greatest, and most praiseworthy citation at the Greece-Turkey University. And what about the judicial miscarriage of justice and justifying wartime as for its causation? See Haile Selassie versus Cable and Wireless Company Limited. I am sure that in today's society, world at large, such a quantified sum at miscarriage would be counted as a fraud and also a mistake of law by the belligerent nations for example, England, United Kingdom. Second essay, Combe versus the Covenant. The first non-communal organized societies were recorded by the Bible. In it describes the first order of societies where grooming and hygiene were mentioned. In fact, the early biblical society stressed the need for long-haired, unshaven, such as Aaron's beard. This very ancient society emphasized the priority of a covenant. We could safely say that covenant was long-haired and picky. However, all societies, nations from Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, Roman Catholic Christians, Hindus, and other forms of notable religion and denomination around the world endorses the use of the comb. Long-haired picky did exist before the comb, and its more drastic complement, the scissors, of value to mention Samson the Christ in this topic. Needless to say, and some say for hygiene reasons, the comb have had to make its appearance. Let's make an assertion that all so above mentioned and not mentioned religions, except Rastafari, is worshipping of Emperor Haile Selassie as the Christ and the God of the ages. All other religions are bald-headed or bald-headed religions. All bald-headed religions must come down. Bald-headed religions, craftily, underhandedly, or of a Machiavellian tradition, supports discrimination of a hair on the head. It is practiced openly in schools and other academic institutions from the start of the enrollment period to the end of the school term. Armed forces norm to trim and save. Therefore, the armies that went out with Moses, Joshua, Eli, and Haile Selassie had covenants. So therefore, why the inconsistency? It should be noted that the wigs worn by high court judges, as depicted in Laidlaw Law Relating to Banking book, on this book cover, is another mere clear reminder that of the ancient dreadlock patriarch, fairness with justice in judgment. Nowadays, one not only is barred, hindered from social mobility because of one collateral capacity, color, and number 4, the comb must be added to the economics of monetary economics to verify the criteria for a bank loan and related areas. So, a final score should be serve God, the covenant, or serve Mammoth, the comb. Third essay, statistics, pain or pleasure, in bracket tells lie or truth. The earliest introduction and acquisition of my statistics knowledge was at Wolmer's Boys School. In 1975-76 academic year, Wolmer's introduced a pilot course statistics when we were in lower sixth form. An expatriate was a white man taught us. Unfortunately, I have not remembered his name. We were thoroughly prepared, except in the area of variances and covariances, which was not on the syllabus. However, on that day at St. Andrew Ike Technical, the paper was loaded with variances, so like me only came out with an average pass. The application of statistic knowledge became an asset to me in my job. Then, as the registrar of survey department, prior to me, the staff orders of vacation leave was computed inaccurately because those who were before me did not understand the application of cumulative and non-cumulative in relation to vacation leave. Just to go back a bit, the headman, chainman, and those artisans were told when they did not take leave, they would have it in the back. It was not so. Their leaves were non-cumulative, a concept that was not understood before my time. If I am implicated, then call Mr. Lambert Brown, no senator, who was then the representative of the workers, because he and the personal officer, Miss Rainford, had serious queries of meetings. At the survey department, I applied for the 3-month diploma in the statistics department, an in-service course in the year 1979-80. The classes were held at the University of the West Indies, UWI Mona, where I met two great friends, lecturers, Mrs. Valernam and Mr. Forbes. Another drama occurred at the end of the course, with the final economics paper. The final paper and economics paper had a blotting on it. This blot had to lead us guessing whether it was monopoly or monopolistic was written there. Even when asked why the blotting on the paper, I was told it had to be a guess. Therefore, although I had a few points advantage going in because I guessed monopoly, and Oprah Lyndon, now a renowned singer, guessed monopolistic, he was given the correct answer, resulting in me coming second with a B+ average and not being able to go to the statistics department. The above mentioned event, I am sure that he can attest to it. See Survey Department File PD 25. The final pain or pleasure when teaching at Money Teachers College, an invitation was extended to those teaching there to do certain amount of courses and gain a diploma in education. At the end of doing the necessary courses, one had to do a research paper. This was to be done by two persons. Myself and a friend of mine teamed up and did the research paper. Herself did the theory part, promoting thinkers like Augustus Comte and others. However, I did the statistics part. Prior to the completion of the research paper, the general social environmental feeling was that it was already a foregone conclusion that the theory half would be so good, excellent, to completely overshadow the statistical part. With my statistical background of doing further mathematics and statistics, a first-year course, and economic statistics, a final-year course at UWI, the diploma in statistics and ordinary level statistics, I was well armed. When I finished applying my knowledge to it, the converse became true. All were so impressed with the statistics and lauded the statistical part of the research paper. However, when the time for the fulfillment of the promise was invalid and that only one person can get the pass, And furthermore, she, the vice principal, Miss Magashan, stated that she knew that it was my former teammate that did the statistics, whose exposure to statistics at the time was mere introduction of statistics in the Caribbean Examinations Council Mathematics. I was further challenged by the vice principal that she would put her job on the line against mine. All my years at Money, I also forgot about the diploma in statistics to add to my qualifications. It was only until offered a job by the Ethiopian ambassador Gebru in Shashamani, and I had to amass all my qualifications because the East put a value on every effort, that I remember the diploma in statistics as a part of my arsenal in that research paper. Article 3. Pax Ethiopia. A terminology accepted by me to reinforce the 21st of April 1966, when His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie arrived in Jamaica. Open a quotation. But a relation because of the fundamental similarity between us that will in the long run contribute to a better maintenance of international peace and security, ... close quotation. An extract from the speech made by him, Haile Selassie, in Parliament in Gordon House on the 21st to the 23rd of April 1966. To reinforce and endorse the above statement, him, Haile Selassie, again one can look at the men of Ephesus' response. Given to me the longest and oldest citation in Greece Turkey University would credit Ababa Janai to be in an ex-ante position yesterday, today, and forever be in the minds of the men of Ephesus. So St. Paul from Ephesus, Ephesians, and this down in Greece, Turkey, Ephesians 2 verse 17, and he came and preached peace to you who were far off and to those who were near, is appropriate for reference to His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. I would like to start dating the total wrapping up, termination, and dissolution of Pax Romana. It was said that Caesar, Emperor Julius Caesar, gave the world peace, Roman peace known as Pax Romana. From the 21st of April 1966, we may say the real taking off of Pax Ethiopia, Ethiopian peace, where we must say Emperor Haile Selassie has given the world Ethiopian peace, Pax Ethiopia, now and forever. Another article, Article 3, Article 4. New stratification for society. Men of gold, men of silver, men of bronze. By Plato, this order now obsolete. These three tiers of hierarchy of society as now or seems to be revoked by our society of today. Revocation is evident. The new order of society is two tiers. On one hand, gangs, and on the other, the police. On the hand with the police are unsung unrecognized members of resistance. On a day, a pastor of Trinity Broadcasting Trinity Broadcasting Company called out all gang names by constituency locally and all other gangs on names and enlisted. Reasons for motivation, he continued: 1. Killing of close relative members. 2. Angriness. 3. Greed and nefarious intentions, among other things. Gangs, formal economies, and politics makes circular causation of funds flow, out of which gangs becomes benefactors. On application to the problem put forward by the pastor is the dispatch of military angels. I have applied a few assertions to the problem, one of which is the forfeiture of values and attitudes. Diagram: values and attitudes. With the clinical preference of the economic allocation of guns or butter. However, we are not a major butter producing nation as New Zealand and England, from which model come Professor Richard Lipsey seems to have been derived or devolved. Diagram: guns versus butter. More preference for guns versus butter seems to, even by appearance, put more pressure and in some cases incentives on gangs. The people could also have considered guns versus houses, typical West Kingston model. Although this is part of fighting for scarce benefit and spoils. One main source of the problem could be duress. One former long-standing parliamentarian once said, "You have to take the slums out of the people," in the quote. It is a reason that slums are in the population gangs. Lastly, politicians and parliamentarians, blinded by virtues, only seem to think of the problem as being due to domestic causations. However, just to show a short bit of economics, Haiti, our neighbor, has a comparative advantage in the export of guns, while Jamaica has a comparative disadvantage in the export of guns. Nevertheless, Jamaica has a comparative advantage in the production of ganja. Parliamentarians, though educated, solve the problem. Another one, this is about number 6. Water is life. National Water Commission logo. Generally, it is said, where there is water, there is life, or life had existed. They say signs of water is on the planet Mars. Therefore, scientists are looking for protozoa or amoeba. However, consider the significance of the National Water Commission logo. Water is life. A general consensus globally and locally will agree that NWC has played a sterling role before its rename in colonialism and after to present day as a single and only water authority. So one needs to qualify water in terms of treated water, non-treated water and untreated water to wholly, exclusively, and necessarily accept the logo, water is life. Because different nations seem to treat water differently, and here lies the full meaning of water is life. Some countries use fluoride significantly in their water. As such people, that is their population, almost only uses bottled water for drinking, or if not, the water is boiled. Other nations use chlorine as a purifying agent, example Jamaica. I am of the view and opinion that in countries where the treated water is more acidic has led to communicable diseases such as diabetes, among other things. In Ethiopia, being there already, its water is more alkaline. Alkaline water keeps more with the natural digestive hormones and processes, and truly fits the term water is life. Nowadays, a new popular radio station, Cool FM, promotes alkaline drinking water because of its better reaction to the human anatomy. Next, insufficiency of funds, consideration, food, no reasonable excuse. This is a usual Her Majesty's revenue and custom, or simply Inland Revenue adage. Insufficiency of consideration, not adequate, and sufficient consideration. Tax law. A matter was brought to the public's attention by media of a circumstance where a councillor versus Jamaica Public Service Company JPS, where the plaintiff was branded allegedly as charged as thief light. In a vague summary of the facts, that the councillor allegedly owes JPS light tax bill of 92,000 Jamaican dollars, along with deemed tampering of the electricity box. Cash bank of 30,000 Jamaican dollars was tendered as alleged by the media. However, where insufficiency of consideration becomes a major material fact, ratio decidendi, the commercial law judgment in DC Builders versus Rees applies, where Mrs. Rees supplied insufficiency, inadequacy of consideration and subjected herself to the penalty. Apparently, thus Inland Revenue applied the same judicial precedents. I am of the opinion had the councillor paid at least 50%, would represent a payment on account of 46,000 Jamaican dollars, and the Inland Revenue should apply a more subjective test. In such a scenario, though, responsibility of the councillor rests not on the supply side as say thief light, but rather the demand side. So supply gives sufficient, adequate food funds consideration. Next, pension funds, a form of financial instrument of salvation. Do we need pension fund and for future purchasing power? Consider the still called the lesser developed economies and how they allocate resources, financial capital against physical capital. For example, a house, bet in Ethiopian language, A house is the biggest investment most people will make. Banking World magazine, although not quoted verbatim. Pension funds have been influenced by the boom and bust of market forces. Although pension funds have diversified portfolios, management expertise, and other illustrious facets of market heavyweights, the most illustrious is the free forces of demand and supply. Pension funds represent a large source for and of financial capital to be of use by financial moguls inclusive of financial directors. Financial moguls act in their own self-interest. Pension funds. And what is money? Pension funds are rarely store of value instruments for and of financial markets. After the 1987 crash, that is the stock market crash, it became no more the financial instrument of salvation. Pension funds, in their diminishing value of the 1990s, was assimilated to form a part of monetary base. So what about risk? What about systematic risk? Example, inflation and unsystematic risk.